So do you have what they want us to say?
I do. Yeah.
All right. Because I didn't see anything, so I figured you had it.
All right, it's live.
Okay. I guess I can ask it on here, even though it's live. Are we, like, what if we finish early? Are we just going to stop this live and then do another one?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I figured. I mean, if it has like a half hour or so in between, we're not just sitting here for a half hour. So.
I can pull up a video game, stream it.
All right. Are you ready then?
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Around the 412, proudly presented by Crowworthy, where winners are serving winners coast to coast with sports, gambling, and more. Follow Crowworthy on Twitter and visit us at crowworthy.com. You can also check out Crowworthy Pittsburgh City page for podcast, blogs, and more. I'm Tyler, and with me as always is Smitty. What's going on, man?
What is good? A lot has happened in the past week. Obviously, this show being the first one, if you're looking at us right now, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see what we're wearing. And we got the Manscaped shirts on. We'll tell you more about that in a little bit. But more so than that, with what we're going to talk about with the Pirates and Penguins, there's a lot of action. It seems like the Penguins are kind of like one team. The other teams around the league are just kind of waiting for dominoes to fall. If you look at like the TSN put out their trade board, 3 of the top 20 names on that list are Penguins. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about a little bit about the Pirates. Brian Hayes, who we mentioned on last week's show, was coming up to make his debut. Well, his first week in the majors has looked pretty good. The only gripe that I would have is he hasn't been in there every single day. Other than that, I like what I see. So we're going to talk about that and more. If you are joining us via the live YouTube chat, feel free to comment whatever you want. If you're listening back, please head over to the YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you can join us when we do the live shows so you can get involved with that. I do have to tell you guys a little bit about Manscaped, though. We're excited to be joining up with them via partnership. And how can you support us? Well, support for Around the 412 is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. They know they're not perfect. They're constantly looking to get better and develop. That's why the Lawnmower 3.0 is out. This bad boy, their newest in line. So personally, I mean, I can tell you guys, I've had a couple bad experiences with grooming down there. We'll say that. That isn't a possibility with this thing. They redesign it every single year. They're constantly, like I said, looking to improve. The Manscaped engineering team spent 18 months perfecting this thing, so you know it's going to be the best. Their third-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin-safe technology pioneered by Manscaped. When I tell you this is premium, and I mean premium, the battery will last up to 90 minutes off its charging stand. I don't know why you would need 90 minutes to groom down there, but if you do, it's possible. It's waterproof, so you can use it in the shower. One of the coolest features, if you turn it on and see, it's got an LED light. So, I mean, that's obviously great. It illuminates the area that you're looking to use it on there. They've upgraded the 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. Let's not forget about the charging stand. Show your mow off loud and proud because it's intelligently designed. The stand is a convenient charging dock, and it's powered by USB. If you are listening to me speak right now, I want you to experience it firsthand for yourself. I know a lot of people are tagging us and telling us that they've got these things. I know a lot of people that already had one, and they absolutely love it. If you have the Lawnmower 2.0, right now is the perfect time to upgrade to the 3.0. You can buy the new package. Comes with a shirt, comes with a T-shirt, comes with the toner, comes with a deodorant, and obviously the Lawnmower 3.0. And You did a carrying case as well.
And underwear.
So, how can you go about getting one? Head over to manscaped.com. Use code 412 at checkout. You're going to save 20% and get free shipping by doing that. Your balls will thank you, and you can thank us. How was
Good
that?
ad read. That was good. Very first time.
So I had to do it on the fantasy show right before this as well. So,
Oh, really?
So
oh,
yeah,
you guys recorded that.
It wasn't exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I switched up a little.
I love it. I used it for the first time last night, actually. No problems, no issues whatsoever. Which
it's not like using a regular razor, that's for sure.
Yeah, my old trimmer, that it snagged a lot. I'll just say that. But this one, seamless. I mean, I've seen.
We're talking about doing a live demo.
What?
Mike in Illinois said still, because I jokingly said, should I use it on air?
Oh, well, I've seen. I think it was a Manscaped video of them using it on a hot dog to show how smooth it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you know it works if they're not tearing up that hot dog.
Like, so I love the lawnmower, but for me, I think that like the toner and the deodorant are really what like got me pulled in on this.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Whenever I first looked at them, I had no idea what to do with them. I was like, I have no idea how.
That's what Stubbs said. Stubbs shot his.
Yeah, I was like, I have no idea how to do this, so I just dived right in.
Hey,
love it though.
All right, and I also want to tell you guys about Keats Barbershop. Keats Barbershop, it's an old-fashioned barbershop. It's located at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. He's open 11 to 7 Tuesday through Friday and 9 to 4 on Saturday. Every Tuesday, he does $5 off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. Again, Keats Barbershop, 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. I feel like such sellouts right now. I feel like we should keep reading ads for people. But
now we're done.
But now we're done, at least till the end of the show, so we can talk about some sports here. Well, I think we're all good not seeing a live demo. I think so, Chris. But I mean, if the people want to see it, we might have to.
We have to search up the YouTube terms of service before we do that, but we'll get back to you.
All right. So we talked about T. Brian Hayes. Made his debut last week. I'm very impressed. I thought there was absolutely no question that he should have already been in the majors. We knew what he was going to bring with the glove at third base already. As soon as he comes up here, going to be one of the best defensive third basemen in the league. And now, if his bat is going to be like what we've seen, I mean, we really got something here at the hot corner.
Yeah, I mean, I said last week, if he can be like a 280 hitter, I would be happy with his defense and that package. But, I mean, right now he's batting almost 390, which I get it's a small sample size, but still, like, if he can be a 300 hitter, I'm ecstatic because, I mean, this guy's been phenomenal so far. And I remember the game that they didn't play him. I didn't understand it at all. And I also don't think, I mean, he's been batting sixth in the lineup. He needs to be batting like second or third.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. So he started out as seventh and they did bump him on to sixth. So I mean, like, hey, a little bit of a clap, I guess, for moving him up one spot. But like I said, I think the ideal spot for him is probably number 2. That's where I think I would be hitting him right now. Now I get, the guys behind him, they got to start hitting. Obviously, they got to start producing. You need Brian Reynolds. You need Josh Bell. Colin Moran has been pretty good. I feel like he's, kind of dipped off. Eric Gonzalez is really the guy that, he's been their most consistent player. But yeah, if you put him in a spot where maybe he's also taking pressure off those guys, like no one's going to pitch around him and put him on base to, and then pitch to Brian Reynolds or something like that. He's going to let those guys see good pitches too. I feel like, putting him at like the number 2 spot would just benefit everybody. So I would love to see that happen. But yeah, I'm right there with you where if this guy, is around a 300 hitter, gets on base at like a 350 clip or so, I mean, we're looking at a guy that could be representing the Pirates in some all-star games here sooner rather than later. So I'm very excited about the future of T. Brian Hayes. I was excited before he came up, and I'm even more excited after watching him play, I don't know, 5 games, something like that. So I think that he's, kind of been even better than advertised, at least to this point, because like I said, we all kind of thought the defense would be there. The bat was the question mark. To this point, it looks just as good as the glove.
Yeah. And how about hitting your first home run in your debut? Nothing better than that. I mean, I think the only thing better than that is like Marte's, for example, whenever he hit
Yeah,
a home run in his first at bat. But
I
yeah,
was going to bring up too. I remember when you actually weren't on with us during the show. We had Sarge here to fill in, but when Jared Oliva, the Pirates, was on the show with us, um, he said we asked him about like the best advice that he's gotten from major leaguers so far because he was around a lot of veterans in spring training, and he said, "Well, I haven't been able to put it to practice yet because I haven't made my debut, but it pertains to the debut. In your debut, swing at everything because it's like you have superpowers that night." And I feel like Brian Hayes, he goes out there and he did strike out in the game as well. But I feel like that was kind of, similar. Like guys actually do that. Yeah, they're just swinging everything because if they do make contact, there's just something in the air that night, that's going to make those magical moments happen. And we saw that. I also saw a YouTube question that I want to talk about before it disappears. They said, will the NL continue to have a DH pass this year? And should the Pirates consider using Moran as first base or DH and let Brian Hayes play third, should that be the case? Brian Hayes is the third baseman of the future. So regardless of if there's a DH spot in the NL pass this year, which they haven't said yet, that's still up in the air. They only adopted it so far for this season. So like if next season were to start like right now and they haven't changed anything, the DH would not be in the NL. But should that happen, I honestly think with the roster we have now, it'd probably be Moran get more starts at first and Bell as the DH because that seems to be like their best defensive unit. It's such a shame that Bell hasn't taken, like he's obviously improved a little bit defensively at first base. I still have zero comfort level when he has to throw the ball to second base or home. It just doesn't look natural to him, and it's frustrating and it's sad for him that he hasn't been able to progress in that aspect. But I think that their best alignment would be putting T. Bryant at third, obviously. I mean, that's where he's going to be. And then if you're obviously choosing between Moran and Bell, I think Moran's a better option defensively at first base, so that would mean Bell DHing. But I don't think Josh Bell's future is in Pittsburgh anyway.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. What sucks so bad is that we've talked about over Bell's career with the Pirates is the consistency. That's been his main issue. He's shown flashes of being this all-star guy, but he hasn't been able to do it consistently. And the defense is definitely better with Moran, so I agree. You'd have Bell DH and Moran at first, and Brian Hayes. I mean, I don't care how good Moran is. Brian Hayes is your third baseman. I mean, that flat out, that's just it. So, yeah, I agree. But I mean, I think the NL is just going to adapt the DH because we all figured it was going to be sooner than later, and then I think this just kind of escalated it. So I think there's a good possibility the DH is coming like permanently for the next season or two.
Yeah, and then I guess the question would be, do they go and get an actual first baseman so Moran would be the DH, or do they go and get just a hitter to be the DH and have Moran be the first baseman? Because if it's not going to be Josh Bell, I mean, they're obviously, who's it going to be? I don't think that somebody's on the like. I don't buy into Jose Osuna. I know there's a part of the fan base that really likes him and wants him to get more at bats and think he's potentially a first base DH option for them. I don't see that. Is there somebody else in the organization? I'm not a believer in Will Craig either.
What about I know a lot of people say he will probably switch to outfield, but what if they put O'Neal Cruz at first base? He's a big target.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say it's the DH.
No.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I feel like I know that he's, as tall as he is, 6'8", pretty much, but I still feel like he's too athletically gifted to kind of just stick at first base. I feel like that would kind of be a disservice to the tools that he brings to the baseball field, at least at this point. Like if he really starts to fall apart defensively, like where he can't play anywhere else, then sure. But I feel like at least trying to make that transition right now would be a disservice to his tools.
Yeah, I agree. I just figured everybody says he's going to switch positions when he comes to the majors.
Yeah.
So,
and I get it because you look at the other guys that they have coming up, obviously distracting Nick Gonzalez, but they feel like he's a guy that could potentially, almost be on a fast track here because he did play 4 years of college baseball. And, but I think that, between him and you have the, I tried to say his name. I have no idea if I'm saying it right. Leover Piguero or whatever came up from the Diamondbacks. If he's your shortstop in the future, I mean, he's only 19, whether it be him or Cole Tucker, and obviously P. Brian Hayes at third base. Yeah, where is there a spot for O'Neal Cruz in the infield? So then you would start looking at the outfield, and I don't know I could see why people would be talking about potentially first base. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy too about Bell being a first baseman and not being able to throw a second is that he was an outfielder before that.
Yeah.
And he had to make throws from the outfield. How can you not throw to second or home? I've never understood that. You switch positions and your arm gets worse.
Yeah, and that's why I think it just makes it seem like it's just a mental block because, somebody actually in here already mentioned Pedro Alvarez. And, he was fine defensively at third base for a while. All of a sudden, that went away. And then at first base, he wasn't good either. I mean, it almost seems like just mentally he could never get back to that level. And you just wonder if Josh Bell mentally will never be able to make those throws.
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously they didn't trade him this trade deadline, so I think there's a very good possibility he's just gone before next season. I mean, while he has some value left, I don't know if it's going to be higher than what it would have been if they traded him at the deadline, but I think the writing's on the wall where it's nearing the end for Josh Bell in Pittsburgh.
I think it will be better. I think that a team would have been able to buy low if they would have just been set in stone on selling him at the deadline this year. I think, regrouping, hoping he finishes out strong this season and, letting teams look at what the free agency is going to look like and the trade market, I think that increases his value. I really feel like their return will be better doing that as opposed to if they would have traded him at the deadline. And that's why I think that they didn't make any moves at all, was because everything was just so, watered down. Nobody was offering anything. Everybody wanted to buy low. And that's why the Pirates couldn't get in on any deals, which I really, honestly, like I said on here, I didn't take much issue with for that reason. I didn't want them to trade guys just to trade guys. I want them to be able to maximize the return. Apparently, they were pretty close on a Joe Musgrove deal that didn't end up going through, but the Blue Jays felt like they were close with a deal for him, and I would have been interested in what that return was. Obviously, Ben Cherington having the relationship that he does with the Blue Jays. And speaking of the Blue Jays, we thought that, I mean, we still could. I'm excited to see him come back next year, hopefully healthy. Anthony Alford, who we brought over from there, actually had looked kind of promising. And he was a top prospect at one point for those guys, and there was some promise there. Obviously, it didn't work out, was never able to hit at the major league level. We claimed him. He came over here, and he was looking pretty good. And then, of course, the Pirate luck kicks in, and he fractures his elbow, breaks it clean. So, yeah, that kind of sucks. I mean, it's kind of like another one of those things, like right on track with like the Phillip Evans injury, where this guy was like starting to show something. He has a great opportunity in Pittsburgh with the roster the way it is and the team the way it is, to kind of show what he can do individually. And he, like I said, he was showing flashes. He looked promising, and then that happens, on a home run where he's trying to scale the wall. So it's unfortunate, and I'm hopeful that he'll be back next season. But you just wonder, by next season, there might not be a spot in that outfield. If you still have Reynolds there and Gregory Polanco, we just brought up Jared, he could potentially be in center field next year, or, they're getting to look at Cole Tucker out there this year. Who knows? Maybe they want him to play center field in his future. So I don't know what the plan is, but it's a shame that this guy's done for the year with that elbow injury.
Yeah, it just keeps piling on, huh? Pirates can never catch a break. Not only are they bad, they just keep getting injuries as well. I mean, you started the year off without your two top pitchers, and then as the season goes on, there's just been a continuous injury bug. Very disappointing.
Started out without two of your top pitchers, and then your third or fourth in Keller, who you were hoping can really show you something this year. He gets hurt pretty early on, and then Phillip Evans, Anthony Alford. There's been some other injuries along the way. Kevin Newman, the Moran concussion he just came back from recently. So I mean, obviously every team has these bumps and bruises. It just seems like with the Pirates, it never ends, and that's what I know. It never ends has kind of been going around on Twitter when it comes to being a Pirate fan. So that's why I said that specifically.
I mean, yeah, they're right. It pretty much fits being a Pirate fan anyway. It never ends.
There's not a whole. I noticed there wasn't like a whole lot to talk about in baseball. So the last thing to really cover that relates to us, Billy Hamilton is back in the NL Central. Decided to deal with the Cubs, and that sucks because he sucks, but not against the Pirates. And the fact that he's on the Cubs makes it even worse.
Well, I want to look. Well, I know he's batting terribly this year, but I want to look up what his split is against the Pirates
in his career.
Yeah.
And it even so. I mean, he seems to always hit the Pirates well. but like especially at PNC Park. Like I don't know what his numbers look like at home for like the teams he's played on at home against the Pirates, but definitely on the road at PNC Park, he has absolutely tortured us. And it never matters how good the Pirates are or how good the team he's on is or how bad he has been. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 400 hitter.
I don't think it's that high. I mean, he's a career 241 hitter.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find it. I'm almost at the teams. Against the Pirates, he is batting 280 in his career.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. You can't look at PNC Park?
I could try to find a stadium. Let's see. PNC Park. He's batting 303.
Okay. I mean,
which is still. I mean, against teams where he has significant games played, like not just like one or two, that is like significantly higher than every other stadium besides Coors Field. Coors Field is batting 356.
Yeah, it just seems like big moments too. He always comes up with a big hit.
Yeah, I mean he's a below average player. I mean he has a career WAR of 10.1, but if he played the Pirates every day, he'd be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, pretty much.
How many games do the Pirates have against the Cubs left?
Good question.
Can't be that many, right?
No, I mean you don't have that many games left in the season. They've played 39 games. They still play the Cubs 1, 2, 3, 4, only 4 more times.
And they're at PNC Park.
Yeah.
So he's just going to eat.
If he plays.
I mean, he's batting, what, .048, so I don't know if he's going to play. But, yeah, he was a dagger in our side for years.
Annoying guy. But, okay. If you don't have anything else in baseball, I'm ready to move on to hockey.
I don't think so. Not with baseball.
All right. So this is where the fun begins. We're down to the conference finals, and I'm a little bit surprised. The Stars are up 1-0 in the Western Conference Final on the Vegas Knights. Not only did I not expect the Stars to be here because I thought they'd lose to the Avalanche, they're now up 1-0 in the series on Vegas.
Yeah, my predictions, let's just visit back on them. My predictions were 0 for 4. I had Vancouver beating Vegas. Right. I had Colorado beating Dallas. I had Philly beating the Islanders, and I had Boston beating Tampa. So I'm happy I didn't bet on any of those series. Yeah, you had the Eastern Conference right, but neither of us had the West right. And it's crazy that Vancouver, Colorado, and Philly all forced Game 7 down 3-1, and then all lost Game 7.
Yeah, you know how I feel really bad for Vancouver? Thatcher Demko. Man, was he a stud when he came in. You just wonder, what would have happened if he had played that whole series?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a meme. It was like the rest of the team, they have to just apologize to him, because it wasn't his fault.
Ridiculous. He had a streak where he had given up 1 goal on 118 shots or something like that.
Yeah, he was nuts.
And then the Lightning, obviously, they're also up 1-0. The Islanders in the Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah, they won 8-2.
They scored 8 goals last night. And John Cooper kind of played it down, saying it's a one-off. He doesn't expect it to be that lopsided at all, in another game this series. I feel like it's kind of cheating right now to pick, even though because one game has been played. But Tampa Bay I would have picked anyway, regardless of if it would have been Philly or the Islanders they were up against.
Yeah.
So Tampa Bay would have been my pick. In the Western Conference, even with Dallas having a game up, I'm still picking Vegas.
All right, so that's what I was going to do too. So we've got the same pick. So we're either both going to be right or both going to be wrong.
I feel more comfortable about Tampa.
So do I, for sure. But I'm picking Vegas, even though Dallas has a game. I think overall, and I feel like I said this about Colorado too, but I feel like overall Vegas has a better team, the more solid team all around. I mean, right now the biggest question mark for Vegas is like goalie. Why did they start Fleury in game one if Leonard had won you the series before that?
Yeah, I mean, not that they gave up one goal and it was like 2.5
Yeah,
minutes.
it's
Then,
not his fault.
yeah,
It's not Fleury's fault. You cannot blame the goalie of nothing loss because your team didn't score. But why did they switch to goalie? That's what I want to know because it doesn't really make sense because Leonard was playing well.
I have no idea. And you
Like,
wonder who's starting net now for the Islanders.
like it's honestly like in 2017 where Fleury was playing amazing in the playoffs, and then all of a sudden we just like go back to Murray, even though Fleury was playing very well. I mean,
but see, at that time, I felt like there was kind of because we lost that. Or what year did you say? 2017.
Yeah,
So we had lost to
we
Ottawa.
lost game
right?
1 to Ottawa, 1-0.
So, but that
two
was
to
off
one,
a,
2-1.
that was off a loss at least. Like, not that it was his fault, but like
Yeah.
I don't understand how you win and then make the switch.
Mm-hmm.
Be interesting to see what they do in game 2. Do they make the switch just because you lost 1-0? I mean,
I mean, if you went to him in game 1, I don't see how you can go back to him or how you can't go back to him in game 2 just because he let up one goal. I mean, stick with a goalie. I don't know what you're doing if you're just flip-flopping goalies like that. I mean, what does that do to them mentally? I know these guys are professional athletes and they're supposed to be able to handle that, but still.
Yeah, the mental aspect is what we always talk about goalies, and yeah, probably not the best thing to just keep going back and forth. That's why the Penguins had to figure out who their starter was going to be, and obviously they made the switch to Jari at some point in that series, but I feel like
a little too late.
Huh?
A little too late.
Yeah, I was just saying I feel like there was a little bit more cause for doing so.
Yeah.
But okay, a couple other things around the league. Ex-Penguin and ex-Penguin assistant coach Mark Recchi was hired by the Devils, so he's going to be on their bench as an assistant coach. The Coyotes interviewed the Penguins' assistant general manager, Jason Karmanos, and they also are interviewing Pierre McGuire and Sean Burke. Pierre McGuire, dude, like he just sticks out because I remember when he was linked to the Penguins before Jim Rutherford came in, and I was like, what? Like, why? Like, where's the experience there? Like, what makes him a qualified candidate for this? But hey, if another team thinks so now, I guess there's like some type of resume there that warrants the consideration.
Maybe it's because he could tell the entire team like where they played junior hockey and where they played Pee-wee. Yeah, he can tell you like what the team's gonna look like in 2032. He already knows the players.
And then we have a list of topics to talk about when it comes to the Penguins. First thing first, obviously, it's kind of just like a bullet point. Juuso Riikola back on a 2-year deal. This one kind of took me by shock, though. So we saw Chad Ruhwedel get his 1-year extension here to solidify he'd be back 2 more years. Juuso Riikola on a 2-year deal, and he is making more than $1 million average annual salary on this. He's being paid as if he'd be like a bottom pairing guy. And you look at what they have on their left side, and as long as Jack Johnson is there, and unfortunately we do expect him to be, you kind of have your 3 left-handed pairing, like defensive guys solidified between Dumoulin, Pettersson, and Jack Johnson. Where does Riikola fit in here? I mean, I think that you're with me in being surprised based off the conversations we've had.
Yeah, it literally makes no sense because I brought up to you how that you literally have 5 guys now playing on your left side in your system because even though he's not up yet, you're expecting Pierre-Olivier Joseph to come up. So you have 5 players that are left side defensemen, and you're only going to play 3 of them. I mean, I thought whenever they re-signed Ruhwedel, I thought the writing on the wall was like, all right, they're not bringing back Riikola. But then they give Riikola more money than Ruhwedel and a longer extension. That literally makes no sense to me because it's pretty well known that Sullivan doesn't even like him as a player. He doesn't want to play him. So I don't really understand it because you're pretty clogged up on the left side of the defense right now.
Yeah, unless we feel like the Penguins are working on a move, and I mean Dumoulin's not going anywhere. I feel like He's on a pretty nice contract. We know they love him, obviously, as a player a lot. He wasn't that great when he returned last year, but the injury he was coming off of was pretty devastating. Especially when it comes to ice hockey, we're talking about an ankle injury with some torn tendons in it. To try to come back from that right away, I kind of expected him to be rusty. I even said that it would probably hamper him for the rest of the year. So hopefully, he's able to get healthy and come back next year. Marcus Pettersson, they just extended last year. And Jack Johnson, while we would love to see him move, I just don't think it's realistic to say that it's going to happen at this point. Like, I'll believe it when I see it if it happens. I think that he's on the Penguins roster to start next season.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, if you're looking at the left side defenseman, I feel like the one that could be most likely moved, just because Jack Johnson isn't probably going to be moved because he's the hardest one, is Marcus Pettersson. And it sucks because he just got a new deal. But if they're going to move one, that's probably the most likely candidate, because I would imagine they would rather move him than Dumoulin, because Dumoulin's probably your most sound defenseman on the team. So but I'm just looking at the roster right now on the defense, and it just doesn't really make sense to me. Like, why do you have so many? Why do you need that many?
It also tells me that they're probably not looking. They're not going to look for another defenseman in free agency or via trade.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the free agency pool for defensemen. I looked a couple weeks ago, and when it comes to money-wise, I don't think the Penguins could afford a lot of the guys that are on the market. And a lot of the guys that they could afford, you just don't want. So the free agent defensemen aren't that great this year. I mean, a couple names I was looking at were like Zadorov from Colorado, but I imagine they're probably going to keep him. Torrey Krug from Boston, he's going to make too much money. So he
said he wouldn't sign a one-year deal. Because I saw that there was talk about that with Boston because of the question marks as far as like the salary cap, but he said he wouldn't sign a one-year deal. So
yeah, so I just don't see it realistically happening where they're going to sign a free agent even before the Ricola signing. But now it looks like they're definitely not. And I don't know what they're going to do at defense because, like we said, like we have, let's see, how many right defensemen we have? We've got Letang, Marino, Ruedel, and Maniscalco. So you got 4 right defensemen. You got 5 left defensemen.
Is
3 defensemen.
Gone?
He might be in the A. I'm not sure.
I wasn't sure if he was a free agent.
No, he's still on the AHL team. So I mean, if you want to count him, we've got 5 of each, and the only 6 are playing. So that's 4 defensemen that you're not even playing. It just seems too many because you only keep, and you have your 20 guys that are on the ice when you play, and you typically have 2 to 3 extra guys, and it's normally 2 forwards and a defenseman, or 1 forward and 2 defensemen, or something like that. You don't really have a lot of guys just sitting on the bench because you either want them to play in the NHL and get experience, or you want them to play in the NHL and actually play in the league. You don't want guys to just sit in the press box every single game, because what's that doing for you, and what's that doing for them as a player? It just doesn't really make sense to have all these guys if 4 of the 10 of them are going to sit.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the one thing that we have seen, there was actually an article put out, I don't know if you saw it, about Chris Letang. Now,
the one this morning?
Yeah.
I did.
Now, I mentioned the start how there was 3 Penguins listed on like TSN's top 20 trade targets or whatever. Chris Letang was one of them, with Jared McCann and Matt Murray being the others. Matt Murray we're going to talk about, Jared McCann we can talk about later, but because we're talking about the Penguins defense, I feel like it makes sense to bring this up now. A Chris Letang trade. I know there's probably not a more polarizing player right now on the Penguins, or if anybody does rival him, it's Matt Murray, and he's not going to be here much longer anyway. So the fan base is pretty divided on Chris Letang and his value to the team, how much he helps, how much he hurts. We acknowledge the mistakes that he makes, but the benefit always outweighs that. And a Penguin team without Chris Letang, if Rutherford pulls the trigger on a trade and Chris Letang is not on the Penguins next year, I feel like that has absolutely shut the door on their window for winning a Stanley Cup. And I understand Crosby will still be on the team, Malkin will still be on the team. They're going to be great players. They'll still be in the playoffs. But I don't see them making a deep run after a Chris Letang trade, because they're not going to win the trade.
I mean, they even if they won the trade, they would win the trade in picks and prospects, not NHL ready players that are going to help your team right now. So that doesn't help your window. I mean, it might extend it for the future players, but like winning right now, it doesn't help you any. You're not going to find a guy on this roster that is going to replace the minutes that Crystal Tang plays. I mean, I love John Marino. He's not going to play over 25 minutes a night right now. Maybe he will eventually, but you're not going to trade Letang and expect Marino to do what Letang has done for his entire career automatically on his second year. It's just not going to happen.
I should have when I said what I said about closing the window, I should say on Crosby and Malkin's chances of winning another one. Because I feel the same way that you would. Like, yeah, I don't think that it like cripples the organization as a whole or anything like that. But you're kind of, kicking the can where maybe you're talking about the next window of opportunity where, like, obviously Jake Gensel would still be here, hopefully, but like Sam Poulin, Nathan Laguerre, P.O. Joseph that we just talked about, that, those guys, that core.
Yeah, and I understand Chris Letang has his flaws. He makes some dumb passes sometimes. He's got some dumb takeaways against him, or giveaways, I guess technically would be for him. And sometimes he'll pinch when he shouldn't. But like we've said multiple times, his skills outside of that outweigh that. The minutes that he plays outweighs that. His offensive skill outweighs that. The way that he can back check outweighs that. I mean, he's one of the fastest defenders on the team still, and he's 32 years old. I just don't see a way that if you trade Letang, your team gets better whatsoever. Because we said it multiple times that the top leaders in giveaways among defensemen every year are the best defensemen in the NHL. And that's what are considered the best. They might not be the best defensive defensemen, but what people consider the best, the Brent Burns, the Erik Karlssons, the Victor Hedmans. Yeah. Like they always lead the league in giveaways among defensemen because they're on the ice so much and they're handling the puck so much. Chris Letang handles the puck probably more than any other player during the game of any Penguin game besides maybe Sidney Crosby. And I would be willing to bet that. I guarantee he handles the puck more than almost anybody. So obviously he's going to give the puck up sometimes, but the things that he does productively on the team outweigh that immensely, in my opinion. And I just don't see a way that if you trade Letang, you're making your team better right now.
Yeah, me either. I mean, that's what I said. I feel like you make that trade and, I don't know what the haul would be like for him, but whoever is trading for Chris Letang has a pretty good roster right now, and they're looking to win a Stanley Cup thinking that he's the missing piece. They're not going to give up NHL talent to do that. So it's going to be, picks and prospects. And we're talking about guys to add to the future for the Penguins, not to add to right now. And this is a team that should be looking to capitalize and maximize these last couple years, with Crosby, with Malkin, with hopefully Letang. If Letang is traded, now we're just talking about, the Malkin and Sid era, because Letang has been part of that up until now.
Yeah, and I understand people are going to clap back with, oh, well, we won the cup without him in 2017, but we don't have a player that has performed like Justin Schultz did. Justin Schultz basically became Chris Letang when Chris Letang went out, and you would have to put that expectation on John Marino probably. And you can't bank on a player doing that. I mean, the Penguins literally got lucky. It's not like they traded Letang in 2017. He got injured. He was out for the season, and Schultz stepped up, and he had a 55-point season. You cannot expect Marino to do that by trading Letang away. So it makes no sense to trade him away. I get they won a cup without him, but you cannot bank on winning another one without him.
I agree. That's a good point. There's a lot of luck involved in that year, because Justin Schultz, that's easily the best year of his professional career. If that doesn't happen, they probably don't win back-to-back cups.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not a guy on the team right now that can replace him. And I love John Marino. He's not replacing Chris Letang right now. Maybe in 4 or 5 years, maybe even 3 years. Not right now.
That's why it'd be great to have both, and we should have both.
Yeah.
The hiring depends. We talked about when they'd fired their coaches. Obviously, I mentioned Mark Recchi going to the Devils now. They brought in 2 new assistants. The one we talked about is kind of I knew it was happening as soon as he was let go by the Capitals. Todd Reardon coming back to the organization. They also had Mike Vellucci behind the bench, who was coaching at Wilkes-Barre. I like both those hires a lot. I feel like, so getting back to the Crystal Tank thing, I kind of felt like with Todd Reardon coming in, that meant they wouldn't even like listen to offers for Crystal Tank. They had a great relationship. Todd Reardon has a great relationship with Sid as well. He was great for the power play. He's very good with the defenseman. Obviously, Crystal Tank, kind of the only defenseman that's still back there out of the ones that he's like really, really worked with and had a relationship with. But I like both these hires. For me, I looked at the Vellucci one and think this is kind of like now Sullivan has to be looking over his shoulder because a lot of people thought this would be the next guy in line should Sullivan, be put on the hot seat and then they would make a coaching move. This would probably be the guy that they would hire. That's the way that the Penguins typically operate, just the next guy in line moving up. So now that this guy's going to be on the bench and really like be looking over him, I feel like this is really, going to light a fire under Sullivan and tell him, there's no more of these. He can't be caught napping at this point. Like I'm not going to say he's on the hot seat, but there's somebody that's very capable, the organization feels like, of replacing him standing to his right and left.
You might not say he's on the hot seat, but I will. He is on the hot seat. I mean, with the expectations that the Penguins have, he has had back-to-back first-round exits. Technically, this one I guess you can argue this one, it wasn't even a first round because they technically didn't even make playoffs. It was in the qualifying round. So when you have that, and whenever the GM fires the rest of the coaching staff, I think that's a pretty clear message that your job is getting pretty thin on the ice, and you better turn it around quick or you'll be replaced. And I think that this hire does that immensely because it's kind of like how Rutherford said that he hired Sullivan as the Wilkes-Barre coach as like a kind of like a backup plan, not necessarily a backup plan, but just like as a safety net for if Mike Johnson screwed up. And well, look at how that turned out. So I see this as a similar scenario. Todd Reardon would be an easy hire as a head coach. You just step up to the head coaching job from the assistant. So I think for sure that Mike Sullivan's seat is hot because past 2 years hasn't been so hot, and it's what have you done for me lately? You can't bank on those 2 cups anymore.
You mentioned Todd Reardon, but I was talking about Mike Vellucci too.
Oh, okay, right.
Because he was the coach at Wilkes-Barre, and he's been pretty highly regarded. And there was a lot of people saying that he would be next in line should something happen with Sullivan. But yeah, I mean, you have another coach there now that has NHL head coaching experience. That would actually be interesting if something were to happen with Sullivan. With those
Who
guys
gets the job?
Interviewed, yeah. And does the other one stay on the staff? Like,
yeah, I mean, I definitely think his seat is hot. I will openly say that because I just don't see how it can't be. Like the way that they've exited the past 2 years, and it's not even that they've lost the past 2 years. It's the way that it's happened. The team has looked dead. They look like they have not. They're not even a team. They're just got a bunch of guys just playing on the ice. They're not even. They have no like cohesive energy or any fluidity in their gameplay whatsoever. And I mean, you got to put some of that on the head coach.
That's what I was just saying. If they were to play their best hockey and the other teams outplay them, like Carey Price would have just been standing on his head for 4 games. The Penguins lost, but the Penguins are throwing a great effort at him. So be it. But you just feel like a lot of it was coaching decisions. Like, why is Jack Johnson on the ice in the last minute of a game, with Patrick Marleau? Like, those, first off, the third line and the third pairing should have never been on the ice together at all in that series. There was enough evidence there after one game to know that shouldn't happen again. It's a lot of coaching decision. You also think, like, as far as transactions go, like signing Jack Johnson, making some of these trades that they have, like, I'm sure Mike Sullivan has a hand in that stuff as well. It's not just Jim Rutherford. And that's why I think that the criticism is fair. And I really like Mike Sullivan. Obviously, like those 2 cups, those 2 banners, they'll hang forever. But it's a what have you done for me lately lead, and what have you done for me lately is 2 exits in the playoffs and the qualifiers, if you don't want to consider them the playoffs, the teams that the Penguins were heavily favored against. And I think that this Islanders team this year has kind of proved that last year wasn't, just a fluke. They were a lot better than a lot of people want to give them credit for. But still, the Penguins got swept. They put up no effort last year against them. And then to the Canadiens team this year, I mean, you looked at that roster and it seemed like it was Carey Price and fans. And the Penguins lost them in 4 games.
Yeah, I genuinely think that if something similar happens to like the beginning of 2015, where they go on like a losing streak like that, and they're out of playoffs, and I mean we don't know when this season's going to start. I was going to say December. That might be when the next season starts. But in a similar time frame, if they're in a similar position, or if we either miss playoffs or get first round exited again, I think Sullivan's gone after the season if either of those scenarios happen. Now, if he comes back and we make it to the second, third round and look pretty good doing it, then I think he could keep his job. But if anything less than that, like if they lose in the first round again, I think there's writings on the wall that you kind of have to let him go. You have to look somewhere else.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't even get to that point. Obviously, we all do because we just want them to win cup after cup. But it's just it's the best place to coach, and it's the worst place to coach at the same time.
Yeah,
because the expectation's so high.
And you look at what the Metro's been doing with the players and the teams that it's been having. It's only improving. So the Penguins have to like keep their head above water at this point with the rest of the division.
Yeah. Okay, so the last couple of things here. We know that the Penguins have a standing offer for Matt Murray, which means, they can accept that offer pretty much at any time, should they decide to. One, who do you think that team is, if you were taking a guess? And what could the return possibly be?
I have, first off, with the return, I have no clue because a lot of people, before Yoey's article about Murray being traded, I said the Penguins, like the max they would get is like a second round pick. But then he brought up teams like Edmonton and Carolina and teams that are closer to playoffs, saying that they'd be more willing to give up a better return for Murray, which got me thinking like I don't could they get a first round pick? I have no idea. I mean, I wouldn't think so, but then again, I'm just an idiot on a podcast. I don't know. So the team, though, I have seen so many things connecting Murray to Toronto, and I don't understand it at all because they have Frederik Andersen. Unless they deal Frederik Andersen, how do they even get Murray, or why would they get Murray?
Yeah, I think Toronto has been the most linked to them. It seems like Colorado is kind of picking up steam as far as a destination as well, but Toronto is definitely the team I've seen the most. As far as the compensation goes, the more teams interested, the better return they'll get. And we've seen, anywhere of like 8+ teams linked to a potential Matt Murray trade. So, hey, come one, come all. That's going to mean the return's better. I think that it is realistic to think that they will get a first round pick because of that. If you have 8 teams that are willing to trade for him, and Jim Rutherford can say, well, he can bluff too. Like these GMs are going to be. You think these GMs are all going to get on a conference call and say, hey, what are you offering for Matt Murray right now? Like he can say, hey,
again, a Zoom call.
I have a first round pick on the table right now. And that team is going to up their offer, first round pick plus. So I don't think it's off the table to think they're getting the first rounder back.
Man, I hope so, because that our first rounder is going to be gone.
Yeah.
I mean, you can already guess that. I wonder if he has 2 first round picks, does he trade both of them? It seems like a Penguin thing to do.
I mean, I don't know.
I guess it depends on what it is. He trades
Chris Letang too, and then trades a first round pick for another defenseman.
Get 3 first round picks for next season. I mean, I will say I'll take a guess at the team, and I'll say it's Edmonton because they have to get a goalie for McDavid. Because eventually you've got to start winning for McDavid, or else he's probably going to say, hey, I want out of here. I mean, it's been very disappointing. He's made it to the second round once, and that's it. That's the furthest he's gone. Eventually you have to start winning and proving that you're trying to win in Edmonton, or else a superstar like that, he can go wherever he wants. I mean, I know he's under contract, but like he'll just say, I'm demanding a trade because I do not like any of you. Like you're not proving that you want to win, and I need to win, because I mean a player like that's all he's focused on. So I'll say Edmonton. That's my guess.
I want Colorado. I feel like that's perfect. I love Colorado's team. If Matt Murray were to go there, they'd probably be like my favorite Western Conference team. I can still root for him there. It'd be
They
great.
probably are my favorite Western Conference team right now, to be honest.
I don't want him in Toronto. I feel like the media is terrible. Well, I don't feel that way. I know that. And I feel like it's just a terrible situation for a goalie all around. It's a terrible situation for any player, in my opinion, if you're not meeting expectations. And with Matt Murray being a goaltender and the struggles we've seen for like 3 of the past 4 seasons, I just don't like the situation there. I think a place like Colorado would be beneficial. Honestly, I wouldn't mind Minnesota just because of the Bill Guerin connection. And as of right now, at least, I know they put Dumba, they're listening to offers on him or whatever. Their defense isn't bad. I feel like that would be potentially a good spot for a goalie as well. Some of these other teams, like Buffalo, terrible. Please don't make that happen. Again, kind of the same thing with like Toronto's more media, but like Buffalo, just terrible situation for anybody, especially a goaltender. Ottawa, terrible.
I was about to say, what about the Senators?
Ottawa, terrible situation. Calgary wouldn't be bad. I would probably be like my 3rd or 4th option for him to go somewhere. It really, if he went to Colorado, I'd be ecstatic though.
How would you feel if you went to Carolina?
Oh, Carolina. Yeah, I forgot about them. I'd be fine with Carolina. Obviously, we'd have to see him more.
Well, that's really what I'm asking. We'd have to play him 4 times a year.
For him personally, it's a pretty solid situation. Yeah, I wouldn't want to. I'd hate playing against him though. I mean, we know how our Twitters would be, and that's just a small scope of what it would look like from a media standpoint. So, yeah, I don't know. It'd be a lose-lose because we'd either, put up 5+ goals against him, and people on Twitter saying he sucks and great thing we got rid of him, or he shuts us out and people are saying he should stay here. So
he's literally Fleury 2.0.
Yeah, it
just happened a lot sooner in his career.
That's actually the last topic is Marc-Andre Fleury, because we kind of talked about him being back in net for Vegas. Mark Madden thinks it's a real possibility he ends up back with the Penguins. And you can say what you want about Mark Madden. He is very connected with the Penguins organization. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to hockey on the ice, but off the ice, he has the connections. He was the first one to talk about Jack Johnson signing here. So if he thinks it's a relatively true possibility for this organization to bring back Marc-Andre Fleury, I think it's worth talking about at least. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think it's worth discussing.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Pittsburgh media members in hockey, I mean, as much as everybody hates him, he's at the top of the list when it comes to like knowing what he's talking about. But the thing that I just don't understand is why would they bring him back to, I mean, I'm assuming it wouldn't be to be a backup role. It would be either a 1A, 1B situation again, because we have Jari now. And his money. What are they going to do about that? Would Vegas take some of it back, or would they buy him out and then Pittsburgh just signs him? Or I have a lot of questions, really.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm saying it can't happen. I'm just more confused than anything.
He said in there that the biggest obstacle would be once he's here, it should be Jari's net for the most point. But fans would be clamoring for Fleury the entire time, and it's not putting Jari in the best possible situation to let his career try to flourish. To have a guy like Marc-Andre Fleury sitting behind him. Jari would probably, love it inside the locker room. They'd probably get along great. We know how great of a teammate Fleury is. But from an outside perspective, the way that they would view it, if Jari gives up a goal, it's going to be the same situation Matt Murray was in.
I know. And that's what you get when you have a heralded athlete like Marc-Andre Fleury in Pittsburgh. And believe me, I'm one of them. I love Marc-Andre Fleury, but I'm also realistic to know that Jari should be your number one guy. I was realistic to know, and we were, that Murray should have been the one starting over Fleury. And as much as that sucks to say, it's how it had to be. So that's why I just don't see, unless Fleury is 100% okay with being a backup, which I know attitude-wise he would be, because he was whenever he was in Pittsburgh, and he had to take the back seat, and he has been in Vegas whenever Leonard's been the starting goalie. But I just don't know why he would sign up for that if he feels like he has enough in the tank left to be a starting goalie. And people that would be clamoring for him to be the starter, I mean, this guy's going to be 36, I think, at the end of this year. So you've got a goaltender who's 12 years younger than Fleury, or 11 years younger than Fleury. Obviously, Jari would want to be your starter. Maybe Fleury would play more than a traditional backup, but I don't think you should have a 1A, 1B scenario. You literally have gotten out of 2 of them, or going to get out of 2 of them, because you've had those scenarios in the last several years. So why would you want to create another scenario exactly like that?
They tried to not have it. Anthony Emmy just didn't work out as a backup, but and then it kind of created itself again because of that. But
Yeah.
I will say, it just kind of popped in my mind. We know next year's, regardless of when it starts, it's going to be kind of a different schedule as well, and it's going to be interesting to see how teams, navigate that with their goalie situations. Say we're an 82 game season though. If you were looking at it as, can Jari play 50 and Marc-Andre Fleury 32, I could get behind that. Obviously, I wouldn't want it to be 41 and 41, but I think if you're looking at 50 and 32, because we haven't seen Jari play, a full season yet. We saw him play a really nice stretch, and even then, he kind of tailed off towards the end of the season. He did look really good in that playoff game, though, I will say.
Yeah.
I think the thing with him is he reminds me a lot of a young Fleury. He's very good with the puck. That goes back to like the first goalie that I remember being able to really like play the puck was like Tom Barrasso, also a former Penguin, and that was his strength. And that when you can do that, it's kind of like a third defenseman being able to break out the puck. I think that's what gives him the advantage over a guy like Matt Murray, is his ability to play the puck. And I think that it should be Jari as the number one, but I could see the argument being made as why you would want to have an established guy behind him, just because we haven't seen even one full season of Tristan Jari having his own net. But you never will if you never give him the chance at the same time. So I could understand them wanting to have, a Marc-Andre Fleury behind him, but at the same time, it's not like a traditional backup. Even if he were to play the same amount of games as a traditional backup, the fan base and the media would always be clamoring for him, should something go awry one time for Tristan Jari.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess, like I said, my biggest question about this all, even going past how much would Floyd play and like who would be the starter and all that, just flat out, what does the money situation work out to be? Because Fleury has 2 years left of $7 million after this season, and you're not going to pay a backup or a 1B $7 million to play less than half of the games. So, I mean, did Madden mention anything? Like, would they be a buyout, or would it be like a trade? And
scenarios, not a trade. He brought up buyout, and wait, no, I guess it's the only thing he brought up. I don't think he brought up a trade situation.
Because, I mean, if you're trading for Marc-Andre Fleury, first off, I don't know why you would, because I wouldn't like what you would have to give up, because I know it wouldn't be cheap. Even though he's technically not the number one goalie there, I guess, anymore, it still wouldn't be cheap of the return. But you'd have to think that they would eat some of that salary, because
they'd have to.
I mean, $7 million, like that's what we don't want to pay Matt Murray, and we're not going to bring on another goalie.
They can only retain 50% max.
Yeah, so $3.5 million. I mean, that's what you're probably expecting to pay Jari as their starter next season. So, yeah, unless how do buyouts in the NHL work? Can once the team buys you out, are you just like a unrestricted free agent?
Mm-hmm.
So you can sign anywhere and just make a new deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I think that's probably the most. I don't know why Vegas would do that though either. Like, so Lehner's a free agent himself. Are they 100% committed to him as the number one guy, and what are they going to give him?
I don't know. I mean, he makes $1.4 million right now. That's what he made this year. Yeah. So, I mean, he would definitely be cheaper than Fleury, but that's asking the question, like you said, are they committed to him to be their number one guy?
Because the Islanders, they weren't for whatever reason. So,
yeah.
Stubb said if you can get the flower in your locker room, you get the flower in your locker room. And that is definitely like one of the big benefits. I know it kind of gets overplayed, but for example, just our conversation that we had on here with Brian Rust, you could tell even with what he was saying, like that locker room has missed something since Marc-Andre Fleury left it. It's not as, and not to say these guys still don't have fun, or that's a huge reason that they haven't won a Stanley Cup since, but there is a missing dynamic on this team. And when you have a guy that does pranks like that, puts somebody's clothing up in the rafters, or just all those little things that we've seen Marc-Andre Fleury do, it adds a different dynamic to the locker room that they haven't had since he left.
And You want to talk about like helping some of the players on the team, I guess mentally, is imagine what it would do for people like Letang or Sid or Malkin who have had Fleury around them their whole career. I mean, that's one of their best friends in the world back. I I think it would be great for them, and I think it'd be great for the locker room for sure. I just there's too many question marks for me as to how it would work.
Yeah, I mean, what we found out through this conversation, we keep going back and forth. I mean, there's obvious pros and there's obvious cons. You know, it's just if they can make it work, I'm personally like all for it because I'm not one of those people that are going to be clamoring for him. You know, every time that we see Jari play and the team loses.
Well, so I'll say too, I would be personally all for it as well, as long as he is not the starter. I don't want him to be the sole number one. And I also don't want him to take the net away from Jari either. And I know a lot of Yinzers are going to hate me saying that. Like, it's Jari's net now. I mean, you're going to have to get over it if Fleury comes back. And until Jari proves that he's not the number one anymore, he's your number one goalie. So as long as he's not the starter when he comes back, I'd be all for it. I'd love it. I mean, I've said multiple times, Fleury was my second favorite Penguin. He was my favorite Penguin after Sid whenever he was on the team.
I think he's like the first jersey I can remember having is Fleury.
I was literally before Murray came up, I was going to get a Fleury jersey. Thank goodness I didn't. But
I mean, it still would have been cool to have. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Anyway.
But he's my favorite goalie by far. He's probably my second favorite Penguin ever.
Well, YouTube, if you're watching this, we will be back shortly with a guest. Hunter Homestead should be joining us on the Steelers show. If you are listening to this has just been the Penguins and Pirates talk. You can join us for the Steelers talk as a separate podcast. If you listen back, please remember to head over to youtube.com/c/around412. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us everywhere. Let me tell you guys one more time about Keith's Barbershop, which is an old-fashioned barbershop. It's located at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. He's open 11 to 7 Tuesday through Friday and 9 to 4 on Saturday. Every Tuesday, he does 5 hours off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. Again, Keith's Barbershop, 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. Thanks for listening to Around the 412. This has been a presentation of Crowworthy, where winners are serving winners, coast to coast, sports, gambling, and more. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Around the 412. Follow them at Crowworthy. Visit our Pittsburgh City page at crowworthy.com to find all your podcasts, all your blogs, all that Pittsburgh content. Head on over to manscaped.com and use promo code 412 for 20% off at checkout, plus free shipping to get the lawnmower 3.0, ball toner, ball deodorant, cologne, shirts, socks. No, not socks. Underwear. Why did I say socks? I don't have socks. I'll send you socks. And more, all that good stuff.
We will not send you socks.
I won't send you socks, don't worry. Other than that, it's been Smitty. It's been Tyler. We'll talk to you soon.